Quiet Place, day one. We're going back to the start, Peter. How it all began.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think we're going to have a bit of a debate as to which of the Quiet Places is the better movie, but I thought this was a darn good attempt at giving us something fresh and different in this universe.
So since the opening sequence for the second movie, I wanted a movie like this to happen. I think seeing how they landed, just the chaos of that and the panic, how the initial people reacted, I think is so interesting. I think setting it in New York is a genius idea. You have this, like at the beginning, this text of like New York emits this many decibels is the equivalent of a person just screaming constantly. It set the tone perfectly, I felt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the skyscrapers and things gave this a very different feel to the last few films. Because I think even in Quiet Place 2, it's kind of low-level buildings, isn't it? It's shops and things like that. Some of my favourite scenes in this were where you see them kind of running up the side of buildings and moving around unhinged, as it were. I just thought that was spectacular. My only moan, if I'm being a grumpy old bugger, is I did feel I saw a lot of that in the trailer again, so I kind of wish I hadn't seen some of that.
I think it has a scale to it that you just don't get. Like the first movie particularly is so intimate. It's really about this family. There's only kind of 3 or 4 interactions with the creatures at all. Whereas this is pretty much the entire thing. They are on the run, avoiding them. But I thought that was interesting. And like there's a moment where I think they're in a building and some noise happens down the road and there's just swarms and swarms, like hundreds of them. It's like, oh my God. The build up as well. When the movie started, like knowing what's gonna come, my heart was in my throat, as the kind of ball started to drop. I was really in there.
We talked recently about, the first movie, how you could almost do this film without the monsters because it's such an emotional movie. I got the same feeling from this one. I thought the emotional impact of the human characters in it was just beautiful. A lady dying of cancer or whatever she was dying of, and it was just heart-wrenching, absolutely heart-wrenching.
I was really surprised at the route they went with the lead character. I think that's a really fascinating perspective to have as like somebody who's already dying. She's scared initially, but she accepts like, I only have a couple of weeks left anyway, so I'm gonna go get pizza. And I was like, cool.
Bit silly. I mean, for the other guy to go with her, I guess. But a lovely story. I did think, mind, at the end, I'd kind of convinced myself watching it that it was going to end with him playing the piano for her or something like that. And that's how it would end with the creature, because there was a lot of emphasis on that, wasn't there? But I loved the fact that basically he's portrayed as, let's be honest, I don't want to say a pussy, because I'd be shitting me pants. Do you know what I mean? But he's
he just doesn't want to die, man.
He doesn't want to die.
Right there with him.
Yeah, but he's portrayed as kind of the weaker character of the two, I guess. And at the end, she saves him. He's the damsel in distress, I guess you'd say. He runs and she makes the noise to let him live, which is just a lovely, lovely story.
I think it's a good dynamic. Like, she's the survivor. She's the one that's capable, and he's the one who doesn't know what to do and kind of hangs off her. But I think it goes both ways, because she falls sick at a point in the movie, and he goes out on his own with the cat, which was amazing. The cat is so good in this movie. I absolutely loved him. But like, he goes out and gets the medicine, so he saves her life as well.
It's hard to see losing kind of reality, because this is a monster flick. But really, if you're in the middle of that and there's monsters and shit all over the place, would you really kind of be climbing up girders and beams to rescue a ginger cat when you're literally in the middle of all the monsters who are eating some kind of weird egg thing?
I want to come back to that point in a minute, but I think you love your pets,
Wasn't his pet? Wasn't he just met her the day before?
Yeah, but like, it came to him, it led him to her, like it was another thing going through this scenario with him, so like he connected with the cat. There must be some kind of symbolism with how the cat brought them together, and the cat is sort of his guide when he goes out and stuff. I thought that was interesting. The egg thing, so I think this movie sort of implies through that scene. So there's a moment where Joseph Quinn is going to get medicine for Lupita Nyong'o, and I think it's like, is it one of the impact sites of like a big meteor?
I think so.
There's like lava, but the creatures kind of pull out this like ball thing and rip it open and start eating from it. So that implied to me that like they brought food with them. I think that almost indicates like they're more intelligent maybe than we had an idea of. Like they planned this, they brought provisions with them.
So at first I thought that was like an egg site. I thought that's where the kids were being born or something like that. Got no idea what that was. Yeah, you're right, it was a bit odd. One thing I took away from this movie really was that they are absolutely setting it up to continue to develop this into a massive franchise. So I think you'll get, follow on to A Quiet Place, but this will have its own kind of narrative, its own follow-ons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to see even like day one from another city's perspective or another character's perspective.
You could do day one like for the rest of your bloody life, couldn't you? Do you know what I mean? Different versions of it.
Yeah, and pick different types of characters to follow. Like the original film is about love, it's about family, and this one is about strangers kind of bonding. I mean, I nearly cried like a baby during this film, during the scene where they're kind of doing the magic show together, like in silence. I just thought that was so beautiful, and it was their last kind of nice moment coming together. Or the pizza thing was running throughout the whole movie of like, I'm gonna go get this pizza, and they get there and it's burnt down. And there was a gasp in my cinema at that scene. It just shows how like connected you are to these characters. But the way he goes and gets another pizza box and just writes the name of the place on it is just so beautiful. Like, I think this series just nails character work. It's an excellent like story about humans.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. We've talked about, if I'm thinking of other monster movies, we've talked a lot about Godzilla films, haven't we? And how we literally don't care a jot about the human characters in those movies. This is almost the opposite. The monsters are kind of the side quest. It's the human story and the human narrative that has the punch for me.
I think less so in this one. The monsters don't have that much of a time in the first one particularly, but like this one is like several big action sequences. But I like how they use the New York setting well, or the day one setting well, where helicopters are flying overhead and the creatures are just going crazy. Or I think there's an amazing moment where basically the helicopters tell everyone where to go for the evacuation, and people start moving towards it. Like, you see a group of people moving and zooms out and you realize, oh, there's thousands of people that are all on this one road going, and all of them are individually not making much noise, but just collectively it's enough to attract the creatures. And I just thought that was great. Like,
It's a massacre,
it's just so anxiety filling.
Well, it reminded me very much where you see these kind of nature movies of buffalo moving through the Serengeti or whatever, and then animals preying and just walking side by side with them and then attacking. It was lambs to a slaughter, really. But yeah, just amazing. Just amazing.
Where would you rank this then in among the other films?
I can't do that fully because I cannot remember the second movie. I need to go back and rewatch the second movie. Yeah. That said, I enjoyed this, but A Quiet Place, the first movie, still holds a very dear place in my heart. That's the best for me than this one so far.
I'm right there with you, man. I don't disagree with that at all. I remember coming out of the second movie thinking that was on par, but I have to watch it again. But I think this is of a similar quality. I maybe have a couple more issues with it than the first Quiet Place. I think is near flawless. I thought this ended kind of abruptly. I felt like there was going to be another 15-20 minutes of it by the end. I don't know if that was just me or the fact that the movie's 90 minutes and this series is so prestige filled that they maybe should be 2 hours. It's just a great emotional, character driven spectacle, and yeah, I absolutely loved every second of it. And that's our review of A Quiet Place Day 1. Thank you so much for watching. We do reviews on all the latest horror films out in the cinema, so if you enjoy this, leave a like, hit subscribe, and we will see you next time.